Now, Boris Johnson has been in his new job just a few days, but already he's making some big promises. The new Prime Minister has pledged to push ahead with the Northern Powerhouse rail link on the grounds the country's return on the investment would be colossal, as you've just been hearing. He's also promising to make big spends in a number of other key areas. It has his first real attempt to flesh out the plans for his premiership. Critics, though, saying those numbers simply don't add up. Well, do they? Let's get more now from Westminster, joined by the lawyer and women's rights activist Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu and by reporter for Guido Fawkes, Tom Harwood. Tom Harwood, if I can come to you. No doubt you've heard Boris Johnson over the past few days made some big pledges, big speeches. Can he deliver?
This is someone who's delivered before. When he was Mayor of London, he cut crime by 50%. He cut crime by 20%. He cut the murder rate by 50%. He cut knife crime by 17%. This is someone who's got a record of delivery in executive positions. And that's what was quite interesting about listening to his speech today, talking about how he can connect up the north, make it that real northern powerhouse that we simply haven't seen for decades, and rejuvenating those communities by fibre optic connectivity, but also in real life, person-to-person connectivity with transport links, with buses, with trains. This is something that Boris Johnson has experience in terms of delivering new buses for London, infrastructure, Crossrail. These things are something that it's a part of politics that he knows well, he understands. It's that nitty-gritty, down with the people politics that I think sometimes Westminster misses. The fact that we talk about trains all the time, but most people in this country use buses as their primary mode of public transport. These things are something that Boris understands, and it's something that he's delivered before.
Yeah, he might have delivered these in London. He might have delivered these and championing his mayoralty in London, what he's done there. But he's running the country now. He's not just limiting himself to the Northern Powerhouse. He's making some bold pledges on education and police numbers. It's all very well delivering something in London, but this is nationwide.
That's true. He's promised 20,000 new police officers, and they've started recruiting already. This is a very active premiership. This is a premiership that, unlike the last sort of stuttering one that we had, at least for the last 2 years, this is a premiership that is all about action. No delay, just getting on with the job. And that's what we've heard with this deluge of policy announcement. 20 hospital upgrades, 20,000 new police officers, new rail and bus connectivity, fibre optic broadband. All these things are happening, and they're starting now. It's quite an extraordinary pace of change, but it's the pace of change that we should expect from the new team in number 10. They're people who've worked to deliver pretty extraordinary things before, and we're seeing a really quite remarkable premiership, even in its first couple of days.
Dr. Shola, if I could come to you now. Every day, since Wednesday, we've heard from Boris Johnson. So it does sound rather electioneering, doesn't it, what he's been saying the last few days?
I beg to differ from Tom, right? Can I just remind everyone that this is the Boris Johnson of the Garden Bridge? This is the Boris Johnson of the 350 million a week to the EU. This is a Boris Johnson that continually, consistently lies. He's dishonest. Yes, we're hearing all these promises and pledges coming through. I do not see or hear the challenges to him on how he's going to afford or deliver them. And the excitement over the 20,000 police on the street, which of course we need. The excitement over his backing and pledging of the high-speed trains from Leeds to Manchester. I want us to remember that the high-speed trains from Leeds to Manchester has always been part of the Conservative plan, right? And this started like a few years ago from George Osborne. It has always been there. This is nothing new. And so when I hear Tom talk about, oh, it's happening now, how it's happening, or what we are not hearing about is how it's happening and how he's going to afford it. And let's not forget that Boris Johnson has also said with the 20,000 police that it's going to be over 36 months. So as he factored in the impact of Brexit, or as he said, the do-or-die Brexit, in being able to afford all of these promises and policies he's talking about, none of his economic policies adequately deals with the social or economic poverty still being suffered by many in our countries today. We have a prime minister today who lacks legitimacy, a prime minister who does not have the popular vote, does not have the people's mandate to take us out of the EU without a deal, and does not have the parliamentary mandate either to do the same. So we all know a lot of his words, if not all of them, it's just full of bluster. It's empty rhetoric.
Are you saying then that this is, you know, some strong words from a new Prime Minister and that the honeymoon period is going to end?
I am saying to you that this is the same Boris Johnson. He's full of empty rhetoric and he can't back it up. It seems to me like he's already trying to run for the next general election, right? How is he going to achieve even any of this, a modicum of this, before the 31st of October, where we all know he's going to be focusing all of his energy on? How is he going to address the much needed reforms in this country that is needed, or even unite many people who are now disassociated from Brexit, or even Remainers like myself who question and truly concerned about what will happen with Brexit? He's not doing any of that. In fact, he's deliberately ignoring the Remainers, only speaking to the Brexiters. Today, we've got a government with a hard-right cabinet who now represents the face of far-right supremacy.
This is ridiculous. This is the most
what you are saying is ridiculous because all. I'm sorry, it's ethnically diverse because
there are more ethnic minorities in this cabinet
please, can you just give us the examples? So you have Priti Patel, right? You've got Sajid Javid. And let me just tell you this. In terms of the tokenism of ticking the boxes, substance means far more than substance of character. It's far more important than the tokenism of colour. And do not try to deceive
let me just speak to Tom Harwood, Doctor. Let me put this to Tom Harwood. So what Doctor is talking about there, this is the same old Boris Johnson full of bluster. Isn't it true? I mean, what happened to the London Garden Bridge? Where's the Thames Estuary Airport?
The Thames Estuary Airport was never promised. It was mooted as a discussion. What we're having is an expansion of Heathrow. What we've actually seen with Boris is he's someone that makes promises and delivers on them. He built 100,000 homes in London. He delivered new buses, bike schemes. He cut crime. He cut taxes. He delivered all of that in London. But now let's talk about the future and what he's talking about in terms of what's going to happen for the whole country.
And can I just
We've
correct
heard
you on that?
a lot about the doubters and the skeptics and the gloomsters and the pessimist, and it's time to stop with this sort of awful pessimism that we've had for the last 3 years. Look at the sunshine that's being brought in. You've had a long time to speak, and I'm just going to say something now, because Boris Johnson, one of the first things he did as Prime Minister was unilaterally guarantee the rights of all EU citizens living
which
in
is
this
now
country.
being questioned.
This is ridiculous. You are peddling nonsense.
You are the one.
Boris Johnson is saying.
Dr. Shola, let me bring in Dr. Shola now. It's very lively, this, and very interesting. So he's been tested. He's been tested as Mayor of London, but this is his first role as Prime Minister. He's only been in the job a few days. How do you know he's not going to be delivering or making good on his promises?
Okay, because if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? The bottom line is Tom right here is the one peddling the nonsense. He's trying to make, just like the other people, trying to make Boris Johnson out to look like somebody he's not. We have a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who is economically and legislatively illiterate. This man is a racist and Islamophobe and homophobe. You cannot deny that. And let me just say this.
You can't say that, can you? He's made some comments before, but he's always denied he's not a racist in any form, in any shape or form.
So can I just say he can deny what he likes, but the words out of his mouth are the ones that actually demonstrate what he is. And you can't ignore that. You can't say somebody who calls black people pickaninnies is not racist because he says I'm not racist. What are you talking about?
Boris Johnson is well known for his words, but he will adamantly tell you he is not racist, so you can't
I can
say
and I will.
That. So
I'm a black person, and if somebody calls me a pickaninny, that person's racist. Where do you get off telling me that I can't call the person racist when that is a racist comment? But if we then focus on his policies, I reiterate the point that you're still dealing with the same Boris Johnson. Empty promises, empty rhetoric, full of bluster. I see nothing here that changes. And I'm so glad
I would like Boris Johnson to come in and have a right to reply if he could and challenge you on that. So, Tom Harwood, let's get your thoughts. Look, this is a new Prime Minister. The country, a lot of the country wants change. But you have to agree he's now sort of putting himself on an election footing, is he not?
Well, it's right that we have a government that's doing things, that's talking to the country. I think every government should always be trying to do things that are popular, that people want to see happening in this country. Boris Johnson is someone that is getting out and about, outside London, outside the traditional realms for politicians, talking to those northern communities, the people that voted leave in the referendum, the people that have felt forgotten over years and decades even in this country. We're hearing policies now that are going to rejuvenate forgotten communities, like free ports for coastal communities. All of these things that Boris Johnson is now actively working to deliver, these are things that are happening now. And sorry, as for the baseless smears and slander that we heard earlier, I think a lot of people are going to be a little bit taken aback by that. This is someone who was elected twice in London, a decade after he made the out-of-context quotes that you pulled up. This is someone who voted against the majority of his party to repeal Section 28. He's someone who's in favour of an amnesty for illegal migrants. He's probably the most socially liberal Conservative Prime Minister we have ever had. This is someone who is not the caricature. I'm going to have to leave it there, both of you, because it's a most interesting discussion. And why don't we, I'll do you a deal, why don't we let Boris Johnson be in power for a little bit longer, maybe a few more months, and then see if he's delivered on his promises, and we'll invite both of you back to speak then. Sounds like a great deal.
In the meantime, Tom Harwood, Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, many thanks indeed, and I do appreciate your time today.
Thank you.